Back trying to be live here on the Fallbar podcast.
Yeah, we sure are.
Things are happening in the world of baseball. People are going places. People are changing teams. Winter meetings is going to be upon us starting tomorrow, I believe, which is most likely the time where Juan Soto makes his pick,
Yeah,
which is the
probably.
biggest news.
Could you imagine it's while we make this podcast?
I was actually thinking about that earlier today.
That would be really cool.
What if we have to be on alert if Juan Soto signs during this podcast?
Yeah.
Probably not. But maybe. If he does, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And when he does, we'll have to talk about it because that's a big deal. Anyways, there have been a lot of free agent signings of people that are not named Juan Soto so far. And some of them kind of matter. Some of them really matter. Some of them kind of don't matter at all. I think the big thing for me is that so far starting pitchers are making a ton of money.
Yeah. It's been the forefront of free agent signings. And with Severino and Snell and Kikuchi and Waka and Montas, I mean, geez, there's so many. And, I mean, we've seen a bunch of relievers go, too.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen really any position players up until Adames and O'Neill signed yesterday.
That was just yesterday.
Yeah.
I think Snell he's one of the big fish in terms of the pitchers because Fried and Burns are still out there.
Yeah.
He got a big deal. He got well
massive
over
deal.
$30 million AAV,
Yeah.
5 years, 182, and it's to the Dodgers.
Of course. Freaking Dodgers. And, of course, they're going to pay him in 10 years when he's not even playing for them.
Money.
It's smart. It's really smart.
There's not much more that needs to be said about the Dodgers.
No. I mean, you are taking the Dodgers, who just won the World Series with so many injuries, and now you add Ohtani into the rotation, and you bring back Glasnow, who didn't even pitch in the playoffs, and now you're bringing in Blake Snell, who's won two Cy Young Awards. And how do you stop that?
I saw this tweet. It was right after Snell signed. I think it was from Foolish Baseball, but I'm not 100% sure on that. It was like the Dodgers have this plan to get insane pitching and have enough pitching for when half their pitching's arms break in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And that's literally what they have.
But, I mean, it's fair. You have a lot of guys who are injury prone. I mean, Snell hasn't had – well, he may have had a big injury a couple years in the past, but in recent years he's been relatively healthy. But Glasnow is always hurt, and Buehler has an injury history if they re-sign him.
Ohtani injury history.
Ohtani is coming off an injury, so we don't even know if he's going to be the same. And then, you never know when Yamamoto's arm falls off. He missed a couple games this year.
He got hurt this year.
And
Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin,
Dustin May is
Gavin Stone. River Ryan got called up for a week and then got Tommy John.
Yeah. I mean,
They
all
get
their
hurt.
guys are super injury prone, and it's probably because they all throw with 7,000 spin rate and
a
super
zillion
hard.
miles an hour.
But I don't know.
They print money and they're the reigning champs.
Yeah.
Congrats, guys.
Yeah, good for them, I guess. The team that won it with a bullpen, Jack Flaherty and Walker Buehler, now have a multiple Cy Young winner. But
Blake Snell did kind of have a low floor. He would go Cy Young and then 4 ERA or something like that. He kind of wrote that off last year because he ended up being really good. So there's a chance that especially because the walk rate is so high.
Yeah.
But also the strikeout rate is so high. You could theoretically get Blake Snell to win 2 more Cy Youngs while he's with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But you could also get him to have some relatively mid-season, so to speak.
Right.
So I think that's why, and as a Red Sox fan, as a team, and the Mets were too, as a team that was potentially going to be in on Blake Snell, I was kind of skeptical about it because you don't know exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah. When Snell was a free agent last year, I was begging the Mets not to sign him because
Exactly.
the walk rate is so concerning, and especially once it gets into the playoffs, it's like, yippee, we have this guy whose stuff is electric, and he's going to go 5 innings because he's already put
It's at 100 pitches.
so many people on base, and he's at 100 pitches, and now he's out of the game, but now he's in the Dodgers pitching lab, and they're going to get this electric stuff even closer to the zone, and I have a feeling we'll see that walk rate go up a little bit, and maybe some other things will go down a little bit. Maybe he'll get hit a little bit harder if he's in the zone, but I think it's well worth to try and get Snell into the 6th, 7th, 8th inning of games consistently.
Because it just saves you so much.
Because in the playoffs, that is super, super, super valuable. And, I mean, the Dodgers always have a good bullpen, so for a team like the Dodgers, you don't exactly need him to be going into the 6th or 7th, 8th innings, but it's super helpful, especially when you got teams who are going to be like the Padres or the Mets or, I mean, even if you think if they're getting to the World Series, you're going to be facing the Yankees or, I don't know, maybe the Guardians. Whoever it would be. These teams are going to be taking them to multiple game series. The Dodgers are absolutely the overwhelming favorite to win the World Series, but there are a lot of teams who are looming behind them that are trying to overtake them, and they're gonna compete. The Dodgers are they're a juggernaut, but they're not unbeatable quite yet.
That's the thing in baseball is that nobody's ever unbeatable.
Right, exactly.
Like any time, like the Dodgers could lose 2 out of 3 to the Rockies on any given weekend series in the middle of the year. Like that, like they can lose a 7-game series to somebody.
Yeah.
It's much better if you have Blake Snell going 6 innings in a playoff game than having him be at 90 pitches after 4 and having like 4 walks or something. But I think the bottom line with Blake Snell, we don't have to spend more time on it, is that compared to the Dodgers pitchers, he's been more available.
Yeah.
He's been either decent or incredibly good.
Yeah.
And, like, you paid for him, but you're the Dodgers. You can afford to do that.
Yeah, you can do that. In 5 years, their pockets might be hurting a little bit. But for
They're
now,
gonna have a lot of
they're going to be
championships.
winning. So
They're going to have a lot of championships.
I'll take my pockets hurting for 4 World Series in a row. But I think one question that comes out of this signing is, what do you do if you're trying to sign Corbin Burnes or Max Fried now? Because Blake Snell just
pay a lot
got
of money.
$182 million, I believe it was.
Yes. I'm going to actually do the math on that.
And
I did it when he signed, and I totally forgot what it was.
Yeah, I think the numbers are somewhere around like
36.4.
36, yeah. And
That's a
Max Fried and especially Corbin Burnes are
Burnes.
looking at that, and they're like, all right, now where is my check?
There is an argument. I don't think there's an argument for Max Fried to get that much AAV.
Not that much,
Because he
but
doesn't
it's gonna
have
be more than,
he doesn't have the Cy
30.
Young. It could be.
I mean,
They're probably gonna get longer contracts. They're probably both gonna be over $200 million. If I was a team and I was like weighing my options between Corbin Burnes and Max Fried, Corbin Burnes and Blake Snell, I would be willing to pay Corbin Burnes more per year than Blake Snell.
yeah.
I personally would do that.
I personally would do that too, just because he's, I guess the word for it is more reliable and the safer option.
That's what I think, and that's why I favored.
walk rate.
That's why I favored Fried over Snell too,
Yeah.
and I still do. He's
Yeah.
coming to the Sox, kid.
Except for Fried's injury history.
Yeah, he's been.
He doesn't have like the major injury, but he's always out with like some random like hamstring or
got like
knee
23,
or, like,
24 start seasons.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have the 1 Cy Young that Burnes has, and he doesn't have the 2 Cy Youngs that Snell has.
Right, exactly.
So, I don't know. In the lower tier, which is like, I mean, these are good starting pitchers, but the B tier of starting pitchers, the AL West, the seller of the AL West, so to speak, Luis Severino signed with the Sacramento Athletics, and Yusei Kikuchi went to the Angels.
I mean, these have to be 2 of the more confusing signings that we've seen. And, I mean, I guess it makes a little bit of sense for the Athletics because their year last year wasn't great, but it was significantly improved.
They have some solid players.
They've got some pieces. They've got Brent Rooker, and Blade was better.
Lawrence Butler.
Lawrence Butler was really good. Shea Langoliers was not bad.
They have some solid players. It's for the first time in a couple years that they do.
Yeah, and they're all super young, so they're probably going to get better. And, I mean, I guess if you kind of think about it, like, they're probably spending less on stuff like revolving, more like inner stuff, like stadium expenses and whatnot, since they're playing in a minor league field.
Yeah.
But
Also
they're
probably
also
making
having
less.
way less ticket revenue.
Exactly.
Well, maybe, because they filled out like
I guess,
10%.
yeah, no one came in Oakland anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe people will go in Sacramento.
Yeah. But I think what they're also banking on is, hey, we're going to be playing in Las Vegas
In a couple years.
And we're going to be making triple the money that we're making in Oakland. So why not spend a little bit now and get an exciting team before we get to Vegas? And I mean, I
Hit
don't
the
know.
ground running when you get there.
Right, yeah. And I don't know if that's exactly what they're thinking, but this signing shows that they're pretty optimistic about the near future, which is kind of interesting, but like, I don't know. And they called up Jacob Wilson too, and he was good.
Yeah.
He was exactly how he was at Grand Canyon, where he's got that funky little swing that just produces hits like all over the field. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe the A's are turning it around. Maybe Fisher heard all the negative comments that the entire internet had about him, and maybe he's like, all right, I'll spend my money. We'll see where it goes.
I think the thing that I always think about with these two signings is this had to be the most money that they got offered by like a considerable margin. Because if you're Luis Severino, who pitched for the Mets last year, and if you're Yusei Kikuchi, who got traded to a playoff team and pitched for the Astros last year, what other than money makes you want to go play for the A's and play for the Angels? So I'm thinking that these two teams are realizing how important starting pitching is.
Yeah.
And then they kind of went above and beyond just to make sure that they have like a like neither of these guys are aces, but they just made sure that they have like a solid starting pitcher that they can pencil in.
Yeah.
Because it just helps the team over the course of 162.
Yeah. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe. I mean, I think the A's have much more of a positive outlook than the Angels. I don't know what the Angels are doing, spending $63 million on Yusei Kikuchi, but who knows? Maybe they're using him as trade bait, and maybe they're just going to send him off at the deadline.
These guys could both be trade bait. And maybe, based on how the pitching market plays out, these contracts will look like good contracts.
Right.
Like if Severino and Kikuchi are pitching well, then people like that are trying to trade for starting pitching will be like, we're okay with paying them this. Yeah. But while we're sitting here and like Burns hasn't signed, Fried hasn't signed, like Severino's AAV is over 22 million. Mm-hmm. There was a point in time where we thought Max Fried's was going to be like 25.
Right.
So, and also like, I think it could be argued that Jack Flaherty had a better season than these two.
Yeah.
What's Jack Flaherty? Is Jack Flaherty going to get 4 years, $100 million? And
he's younger than both of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. What's really interesting for me is a lot of people claim that the Severino signing was like this massive overpay, but the Mets offered him the qualifying offer, which I believe was around just under $21 million.
It was just over 21.05.
Okay, yeah. And I mean, he's getting, what is it, like 23, just sub 23?
It's in between 22 and 23.
Yeah.
And Kikuchi's is what? That's 21. I bet he might have gotten the qualifying offer too.
It wouldn't surprise me.
But if it's over
7th in the league in strikeouts,
if it's over 3 years, then you get that guaranteed money, and it's triple that. Like, I don't, especially after the seasons that Severino and Kikuchi had, where they kind of overperformed expectations.
Yeah.
Taking the qualifying offer to then bet on yourself when you can get a 3-year deal worth 3 times the qualifying offer, I think it was smart of them not to take it.
Yeah.
And like the Red Sox gave it to Nick Pivetta, who didn't have as good of a season as these guys.
Yeah.
But if this is where the market falls, then he was smart not to take it too.
Yeah.
Because he could get a 3-year deal worth somewhere between $50 and $60 million.
Yeah.
So
It's very interesting.
pitching is expensive.
Yeah, and I think what the Mets are trying to do with Frankie Montas is they're saying, well, we just watched this guy pitch in the playoffs, and honestly, he pitched very well
Wasn't
against the
bad.
Mets. He's running it close to 100 now, and I believe he touched that number against the Mets, which is kind of out of nowhere. And now you get him in the Mets pitching lab, which has proved that they can get guys like Luis Severino and turn him into a solid pitcher,
Yeah.
and Jose Quintana, and they know how to use these guys, and even Minaya, who changed his
I was just about to
entire
say.
delivery.
They
Within
did
a
a lot
season.
of they did a lot of work with Minaya
Yeah.
to get him better.
They've
and
done
it
a lot of
worked.
work with a lot of pitchers. What can they do with Montas, who already has increased his fastball velo a lot, and he's a lot younger than people kind of think. I
Yeah.
believe he's still in his 20s.
He's been around for a while.
He has been around for a while, but I think he's young. I remember seeing his age and being a little bit shocked.
Frankie Montas he's 31. So
31,
he's just on
yeah.
the other side of his 20s.
But that's not bad. I mean, that's younger than Severino.
He did
if I'm-
debut. He debuted at 22.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But-
Also with the Mets, Clay Holmes,
Yeah.
starting pitcher Clay Holmes, because of
See,
that
now-
ground ball rate.
Now, this is something that, as a Mets fan, I am not only confused, I have a massive mix of emotions about
Are
this.
you concerned?
I'm concerned, I'm confused, I'm excited,
Yeah.
I am intrigued. I have so many emotions about this because what it could be versus what it should be is a lot different. And if Clay Holmes were to go out and try and start a game right now, he would probably get blown up
Yeah, maybe.
because in the 5th inning, he'd probably run out of steam.
I bet he'd do it earlier.
Yeah. But honestly, I don't mind it. I'm going to pull up his baseball spot page right now.
I just pulled up Jordan Hicks' stats from last year
That's-
because the Giants tried to do the same thing.
Yeah, not very good. He
Jordan Hicks,
started off the year amazing.
he made 20 starts. He threw 109 innings, which is his most ever by far, obviously.
Yeah.
His strikeouts per 9 went down. His ground ball rate went down.
Yeah.
His ERA was 4.1. His xERA was almost 5.
Yeah, that's not good.
So I think anytime you see the concept of a reliever being turned into a starter, you get a little scared.
Yeah, I have to agree with this, but the Royals did it with Lugo last year.
That worked
who-
really well.
And that worked super
He was
well.
incredible.
And,
And you know why? Because he got that ground ball rate.
yeah,
Get at bats over with quickly. Get deep into games.
yeah. And I think Jordan Hicks and Clay Holmes are much different pitchers to where this could work. Because Jordan Hicks is on the shorter side for a reliever throwing as hard as he does. And I think Holmes, if you develop a good changeup and a good four seam with his pitch mix already, you're looking at 5 really solid pitches, which is kind of what you need at the major league level. And his sinker is well above
Yeah, he got
MLB
the
average.
Sinker and the slider.
The sinker and the sweeper and the slider are really, really good pitches. But you need more as a starter. And you need endurance, and you need more than 3 pitches. So I'm curious what the Mets are going to do with his pitch mix and with the usages of all of them. But on the flip side, you still have Clay Holmes for $13 million a year. If he's not a starting pitcher, oh well. Back to the 7th and 8th inning he goes.
That's what I was going to say.
And that's the perfect role for him because Clay Holmes is not supposed to be a closer. He's a good
No.
pitcher, but on a team that is trying to win a World Series, he should not be the closer.
I think you're right.
And I think he fits much better in that seventh inning role. And when he was in that seventh, eighth inning role with the Yankees, he was elite. He was so good in the playoffs down the stretch. So there's a lot of upside for this signing because the Mets have Edwin Diaz and because the Mets have options if he doesn't work out as a starter.
It's kind of a wise move financially because if it works out, then you've basically cheated your way into paying for a starting pitcher before having to pay him like a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, then you get a good back-end reliever for a pretty fair price.
Absolutely.
So I think all in all, regardless of how it shakes out, it's going to be like a profitable move for the Mets. Like Clay Holmes, even if you send him back to the bullpen, is not going to crash and burn or anything like that.
No,
and
no.
I don't think Jordan Hicks is going to do that either. Like there are talks of like Jeff Hoffman becoming a starter,
Really?
which I don't know how that's going to work. He's old, but
Yeah, but he's got more of a starter build. He's got the.
yeah.
I think he's got like so many pitches, and they're all pretty good. So I could see that.
It's just something to be on the lookout for because if they aren't used to it, then there is a serious learning curve, and it's much harder than going from a starter to being a reliever, and that's for sure.
100%. One team that has made some very small moves, but has talked about trading one of their guys is the Cubs.
Yes, two of their guys,
Who's the second?
Seiya Suzuki,
Really?
potentially.
That's one that I have not heard anything on, but that's very
He's
interesting.
coming to the Sox, but
That would be elite.
I know that'd be kind of cool.
That would be really cool. The Sox have the trade bait. They do.
Yeah,
Anyways.
we got all the trade bait in the world.
Oh my God, yeah. So,
The Cubs,
the Cubs signed Matthew Boyd.
they sure did.
They traded for Eli Morgan.
That was a really good move.
I personally liked it too. And I think that's all they've done,
I think so.
but those are two solid moves to start for a team that needs pitching. I mean, Eli Morgan had a sub-2 ERA last year,
Their bullpen was weak last year.
and their bullpen was super, super weak. We pointed out in a former episode that Nate Pearson was in there, and he had like a 6 ERA, I believe.
If you look at the Cubs rotation, though, you can get excited about it. Shota, Justin Steele, Tyone, Matt Boyd, Javier Assad. It's good. It's maybe not like top something or incredible, but it is good.
There is definitely good.
Their bullpen is not.
No.
Eli Morgan was incredible last year, but the rest of their bullpen was not very good. And they're trying, and I think they'll be able to successfully trade Bellinger and or Suzuki
100%.
because there are going to be teams that miss out on Soto and Santander.
Yeah.
They can pivot and trade for Bellinger.
Yeah.
There are going to be teams that miss out on. There are already teams that have missed out on Tyler O'Neill. Teams are going to miss out on Teoscar Hernandez. They can pivot and trade for Seiya Suzuki.
Yeah. There's that. That's the one cool thing about this free agency market is there are teams out there who are willing to trade their guys right now, and that's the thing is if you don't want to spend the money, then let's trade elsewhere.
Spend your prospect capital.
Yeah, if you have the depth.
It kind of happens in a bunch of different spots. Like you miss out on Bregman, okay, call the Cardinals.
Yep.
You miss out on people have missed out on Snell. You miss out on Fried. You want a lefty starting pitcher? Call the White Sox.
Yeah.
Like there are ways to kind of get what you want,
Absolutely.
which I think is interesting because it comes down to if you want to spend your money or you want to spend your prospects.
Right. Yeah. And I think one thing that's interesting about the Cubs and one thing that's really interesting about why they're trying to trade two of their top guys is this lineup is close. If P. Crow Armstrong pans out and let's say like one of their top prospects comes up and he starts crushing and Michael Busch was relatively new last year, and Isaac Paredes is still 25, which is really interesting.
Yeah, he's good.
What if they make a big splash somewhere? What if they make a big starting pitching signing or try to snag somebody like Santander,
Mm-hmm.
and then you pick up a couple of pieces, and then you're looking at a really solid team here. I mean, Swanson's had a couple of down years, but there's no reason why he shouldn't be any better next year.
Also, if you get guys if you get like Santander to hit the ball,
Yeah.
Dansby Swanson and Pete Crow Armstrong will field the ball.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Crow Armstrong's ceiling offensively is a little limited,
Yeah.
and I think Swanson's is a little limited too. But if you get guys around them that are offense first, like Paredes and like Santander, then you have a good mix with playing those guys up the middle because ultimately that's going to help you win games too.
Yeah, for sure. And with Seiya having his best year of his career last year after the injury, and Bellinger has been on the upside since he got off the Dodgers. I mean, there's a lot to like here, which is very interesting for me because they're trying to trade. They're selling.
It is interesting.
So I'm curious what they can get for Seiya and for Bellinger. Maybe they're looking at these guys and they're saying, well, this is their ceiling. They're not getting any better than this. Let's try and trade
It's a fair
them
argument.
while they are at their ceiling, which is fair, but it's risky, especially because they're so close. Now, is this a World Series winning team when you got to face the Dodgers in the first round? Maybe not. But
Could it win the NL Central? Yes.
yeah, for sure.
I looked through on Fangraphs. The Cubs have 5 hitters in Fangraphs top 100 from the rankings last year. 4 of them are projected to be in AAA to start the year. So like Matt Shaw, Kevin Alcantara, like
Oh, you're looking at prospects.
they have guys that are close.
Yeah.
So maybe they're trying to save money and make space with trading these guys.
Interesting.
And then kind of hope that they can flood in and have this window where they have young, controllable talent.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense, especially with the positions that they play, because it sounds like they have a decent amount of outfielders
Yeah.
down there.
Kevin Alcantara will play a corner.
Yeah, he'll
And
play
then
corner.
Matt Shaw will probably play second or third.
Yeah, but you can always pivot.
Mhm.
You can always pull a Mets and start who are sending Ronnie Mauricio to the
Put
outfield.
people in random places just
Yeah.
for fun.
But yeah, it's very interesting, and I don't exactly know what they can get for Bellinger, but I know they can get a lot for Suzuki, especially.
I wouldn't really want to trade for Bellinger.
I wouldn't either.
But if you're the
personally.
Yankees and you don't get Juan Soto, you kind of have to trade for Cody Bellinger.
Yeah. Or Suzuki. I know his defense was not the best last year, but the Yankees don't really care about defense that much, so
Yeah, doesn't always matter.
I don't know.
The Cubs are interesting. I kind of want them to be good. I think it's better for baseball when the Cubs are good.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't mind them trading because of the Dodger argument. Or you can even compare them to teams like the Phillies or the Braves or the Mets. and
They're
be
still
like,
below those teams.
Yeah. So, interesting.
Willy Adames signed yesterday.
Willy Adames did sign.
We were on the golf course
Yeah.
when it happened. He signed with the Giants, which I think if I had to crystal ball a Willy Adames type team, it would probably be the Giants.
The Giants or the Dodgers, yeah.
But at the same time, like, what do we do with this?
Yeah, like, all right,
Okay, Giants.
you're on the Giants now, but like, you're
Giants are still not as
gonna
good.
Win 88 games, and you still got to play in the division with the Dodgers and the Padres and the
The
Diamondbacks.
Diamondbacks are good too. They're legit.
So, and you're in the league with the Mets and the Braves and the Phillies. There's not enough room for the Giants to get in the playoff picture.
The Giants kind of feel like if they were the Cubs and the guys on the Giants team were in the NL Central, we'd be saying the same thing that we just said about the Cubs.
Yeah.
Like, what if we traded Lamont Wade and Matt Chapman to kind of free up some money, but they're not in that division, and they have to spend to support themselves. And we kind of saw it work that one year that they won 100 games.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't been the same since then. The magic kind of wore off. So
Yeah. Well, Brandon Crawford had a career year, and so did Posey somehow.
they get Willy Adames, who I think is a great player.
But
But
it's just not enough.
I mean, it's great, but it's kind of just not enough.
What's really interesting, I've said that word a lot today, but
Things are interesting, man. It's okay.
yeah.
It's okay for things to be interesting.
So let me do the AAV here. He's getting $26 million a year. That is a low number for Willy Adames.
Yeah, honestly.
That's a very team-friendly number for a guy like Willy Adames. And you're choosing team-friendly with the Giants?
Yeah. I bet, like,
And this money is, I mean, if you want to get really into it, like, this money is being taxed a whole lot more in California than it would be in a lot of other states. So
like you're telling me
you're not making nearly as much money as a player signing with the Giants when I am sure there are some AL teams who would love to have Adames right now.
Or like you're telling me the Braves didn't offer you the same contract.
Honestly, no. The Braves don't like spending money.
Yeah, but like if you think like the Braves kind of have a hole at shortstop, the Dodgers have a hole-ish at shortstop because they don't know what they're gonna do. I feel like there are teams that would have competed. Maybe he just liked the Giants pitch the best.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like he was just blown away by the San Francisco Giants.
And in all fairness for the Giants, they're paying Adames 20. What did you say? 26.
26, yeah.
They're paying Matt Chapman 25 per year. Matt Chapman was 12th in F4 among qualified hitters last year. Willy Adames was 19th. So nice job, Giants.
Yeah.
You're getting good bang for your buck.
Mm-hmm. Which is awesome, but it's not enough.
No, the rest of the team is.
But, like, it's really confusing for me that somebody like the Tigers or the Orioles, well, the Orioles have Gunnar, but they can move Adames somewhere else.
He said he was willing to
Yeah.
before he signed.
Or, I mean, one of the American League teams who's on the bubble,
The Red Sox could have.
even the Astros could have signed Adames and put him at third. Or, I don't know, the Rangers could have signed him and put him at third. I know they got Young at third, but they can move him to first. I don't know. You can move guys around.
The bottom line
It's
is
not
that
fair.
it's surprising that there wasn't like a bidding war or anything.
Right, yeah.
Or at least we don't think there was a bidding war because he signed early and he signed for less than we thought he could have been.
Right. And I don't know. Maybe the Giants are his dream spot.
I hope he's happy.
I also hope he's happy. But, man, it's just really confusing that was the team. And it's kind of lame, honestly.
That he signed with the Giants.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I feel like if the Tigers signed him, that would have been perfect.
Yeah, that would have been exciting. Another guy, another hitter, another righty hitter that signed yesterday, that signed for less than I thought was going to happen, is Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah, that's a lot less than I thought was going to happen.
And he went to the Orioles.
Which makes me think, are they going away from Santander?
Yes.
And I think the answer is absolutely yes. So, Santander's a Yankee if Juan Soto does not sign there.
And he's a Met if Juan Soto does not sign there.
Exactly. But
That's
it's like, well,
more than likely.
yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, because the Mets will just throw him at DH.
I haven't heard much about Santander. Like I saw this morning, the Red Sox have checked in on him. I don't know what that means. Tyler O'Neill is going to the Orioles. It's a good signing for the Orioles.
I love it. It's like Austin Hayes, but better.
It sucks for the Red Sox, but it only sucks if they don't get somebody better to replace him.
Right, yeah.
Like technically the Red Sox are on still on the boat for Soto? Is it a 10% chance or so? Yes.
Yeah.
Is that greater than 0? Yes. But
Also
anyways, the Red Sox could pivot to Hernandez or Suzuki, who are both better offensive players than O'Neill. If they don't pivot to one of those guys to fill that gap, then that's when things start going wrong.
Yeah.
But for the Orioles, I like this a lot.
I really do. I mean, O'Neill is worth so much more than the money they gave him. So it's a nice, cheap signing, and he gets on base on a solid clip, and he'll smash some home runs out of there.
He
especially
walks
now.
well.
He does walk well.
But the only thing with O'Neill is that he's worth way more than this when he's on the field.
That's
and that's
also true.
probably why we didn't see 3 years and $60 million. We saw 3 years and $50 million is because he's played over 100 games twice.
Yeah.
So you're kind of betting on him to not be around so much. But maybe like if they platoon him a little bit or DH him in Baltimore, they can kind of get the most out of his health.
Yeah.
Because they usually have they have their guys like Cedric Mullins. I think Adley, they DH him a bunch. He plays a ton. Like Gunnar played a ton. Like they take care of their players pretty well.
Yeah.
So that also could have been an attractive thing for Tyler.
Yeah.
Knowing that he doesn't stay on the field at too good of a rate.
Right. And the good thing is, if you don't sign Santander, this is a very good replacement. It's a similar player.
Better defensively.
A little bit better defensively. Definitely faster. There are some concerns with the swinging and missing because his whiff rate is 5th percentile and his strikeout rate
strikes out
is
a ton.
2nd percentile.
It's kind of hard to watch, but
he walks a lot.
if you look at when his whiff rate and strikeout rate have been at its worst, I'm pretty sure that's also when his OPSs and slugging has been at his best.
Let's do some research. So his K rate, doesn't look like his 2018 season is qualified because he had a 40 strikeout percentage and it's not
Played
blue.
60 games.
Yeah. But
I can tell you this. I have it pulled up right now.
You do?
2021, his strikeout rate was 31.3.
Oh yeah.
143 WRC plus. This year, his strikeout rate was 33.6, 131 WRC plus.
Yeah, 2021, he had that low strikeout rate, as you just said, with the 389 xWOBA, but that's way up there, top 7% of the MLB.
So maybe
just allow him to swing freely.
Swing as hard as you can.
Swing at whatever you please and swing really hard, because when you strike out 25% of the time, like
You're
you did in
not as good.
2023, you have a 334 xWOBA, and that is very average, and we don't want average here
That's gotta
in
be
the
it.
Baltimore Orioles. We
That's
want
gotta
you to
be
hit bombs.
Interesting thing to get told is that you are better, considerably better, when you strike out more.
Yeah.
But it's true.
What an interesting player. It's so interesting to me that he had such a high K rate and he swings and misses so much, and yet he walks so much. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
it must mean that he's swinging at pitches in the zone.
Yeah, he swings and misses in the zone a lot.
But he doesn't chase at all. Yeah, 65 percentile chase rate, that's
not bad.
above average, not bad at all.
That's really good in consideration to how much he strikes out and how much he whiffs.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
I like that for the Orioles.
I do too.
I hope that it's worth it and he's healthy. If he's healthy, it's definitely going to be worth it.
Yeah.
So I just hope that he's healthy.
Yeah.
It
Orioles-
makes me nervous for my Red Sox because now, like, the iron is very hot to do something to combat it, especially because the Orioles play in your division.
Right.
And if Juan Soto signs with the Yankees and he plays
Also
in your division,
yeah. And so another signing that I thought was kind of cool was them signing Gary Sanchez. Not a lot of money there, but
oh, sure.
it's
Gary's fine.
He's a fine player, and he's had some really good moments with the Padres, and he had
some good moments with the Brewers.
Some good moments with the Brewers, and he still hits the ball hard, and he still sucks behind the plate, but you know what? Adley needs a couple days off. We'll sacrifice some stolen bases when that happens.
He only caught 28 games last year.
That is
That's
exactly his role.
That's the money spot. That's the
That
number where
is
you
his
want him
role.
to be.
And you know what? If O'Neill gets hurt, well, there you go. You're the
There's
DH
your
now.
DH.
So,
Well, if Gary hits well, he's just going to be the DH anyway.
Yeah.
And there's potential, especially because he used to mash the ball in Oriole Park when he was going with the Yankees as a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
So there's potential for him to just like end up hitting really well and be the DH for the Orioles.
Yeah.
And at that point, that's really good news for them.
Yeah, that's fun.
Played a little first, but Gary logged 12 innings at first base in 2022. Or no, 2024.
That's one hell of an experiment.
Well, that could be exciting. I hope nothing comes from that. Maybe
Yeah,
it'll
I
be
think
put that
Mountcastle
way.
should just stay there. Shane Bieber got another contract.
Oh, yeah, he did. He's kind of an asterisk because he's hurt, but he was a free agent, and he did sign.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ever going to throw a fastball above 91 again.
He was doing it, and then he got Tommy John after he was doing it.
Yeah. But he's
Somet-
he's 29.
Sometimes after you get Tommy John, you come back and throwing harder.
Yeah,
So
that
maybe
makes zero
his
sense.
rehab is going well.
But he has 2 Tommy Johns, which is not good.
He's got like $16 million for this year, and he's supposed to come back in the middle of the year at some point.
I don't know if that's worth it.
And then he's got an option for 2026, which I guess the whole premise is if he has a good year in the 10 to 15 starts he gets, then he declines his option and goes out on the market. But if he doesn't and if he struggles, then he stays with Cleveland.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I feel bad for him because he was going to be in the Burns, Fried, Snell crop
Yeah.
of pitchers if he had stayed healthy, because even though he doesn't throw gas, he was a very effective out-getter.
Yeah.
Which at the end of the day is the name of the game. So I think he's holding on to some hope that he can land a contract at least under that umbrella, kind of in that scope.
Mm-hmm.
But the scary part about him is that things have to go right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of guessing here because he's been off the field so much.
Mhm.
And, I mean, you look at the amount of games he's playing, and he had a full season in 2022. But before that, he only pitched 16. In 2020, obviously, he won the Cy Young during the COVID year. He was great.
21 starts in 2023, so he missed time there too.
Yeah. And, I mean, before that, he was obviously still really good. But it just feels like I haven't watched the dude pitch
Yeah, it's been a long
since
time.
the COVID season. So, like...
And we're far removed from that. Like, that doesn't matter anymore.
Right, yeah. Like, nobody's talking about the Rays-Dodgers World Series in 2020.
Blake Snell, we're talking about Blake Snell and how he can't go deep into games.
Right, yeah. Sure.
But that one wasn't his fault. He was good, and his manager screwed it up.
Yeah, that one was not his fault, but I don't think the Rays were winning that World Series anyways.
So good for Shane Bieber, I think, because he gets to continue his rehab at a place where he's comfortable and at a place that Cleveland knows pitching.
Mm-hmm.
So that's helpful that he doesn't have to do it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for him. He's got that like $15 million player option as a safety net if it kind of doesn't go well this year, and then he's got another chance to prove himself.
Yeah.
So I think also like it's still $16 million at the end of the day, and we're all human beings. Like that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. $16 million would be awesome.
I would love $16 million.
I would get 2 Tommy John surgeries for $16 million.
Yeah, absolutely. So this contract works out for Shane Bieber, I think. And if Shane Bieber comes back and is Shane Bieber, it works out for Cleveland in the short term.
Yeah.
And then he gets to test his market, and then Cleveland won't re-sign him because they don't pay people. But I like the move.
Yeah. A couple moves that I really like that I'm looking at right now. First one is Aroldis Chapman signing with the Sox.
Oh, my goodness.
you don't seem too thrilled.
Okay, here's the thing with Aroldis Chapman. It's a great choice for the Red Sox. Well, it's also a terrible choice. But the great part about it is that the Red Sox heavily lacked, especially from left-handed pitchers, guys with plus stuff that generate swings and misses.
Yeah.
Aroldis Chapman has plus stuff. Well, I don't know if his slider's good anymore, but he definitely has a plus fastball still.
Yeah.
He generates a lot of swing and misses. He walks a bunch of guys,
That's okay.
but that's the trade-off, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of, and he's not Tanner Scott, but Tanner Scott's market still has to like come to fruition. Aroldis Chapman fits a need for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Is it a little weird that he's very hated by the Red Sox fan base? Yes. Is it a little distasteful that he has criminal charges and is a bad human being?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
That's
he posted that foul video on his Instagram
with him and his
story.
mother.
I think it was his grandmother, but regardless, it was heinous.
From the human side, there's nothing to like about Aroldis Chapman.
No.
From the baseball team needs side, getting Aroldis Chapman is kind of a good thing.
Yeah.
Assuming,
Especially when you have a bullpen that really struggled last year.
assuming that he performs to kind of the way that he's performed. I'm kind of excited about having him pitch because he's like he gets in the game and you're like, it's something to pay attention to because he's throwing that hard. And I think he can be effective. I kind of hate that he is who he is, but I think it was a good signing and it fits a need. So
Yeah.
I can at least like be happy about that.
Yeah. Where I was going to pivot to next is
Please.
the Rangers signing Kyle Higashioka.
Yes, the catchers. I'm big on the catchers.
Yes. Why are you the San Diego Padres and you're not paying him more? Why? He's making, and I see it here, he's making $5.75 million in 2025, $6.75 in 26, and $7 in 27. The Padres could have done that so easily, and they don't have a catcher. They don't have one. They can't get one.
He was one of their most important players last year. Like
Absolutely.
I'm not even kidding. Like all seriousness, and it's not going to show up in the stat sheet.
Yeah.
But he's a professional veteran catcher. He had 17 home runs. He was above average offensively with 105 WRC plus. Like,
yeah, and he didn't even play that much, and he still put up like decent numbers.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm looking at his defensive stats, and aside from framing, it's not really pretty. But like, I don't really understand. You're not gonna have a bat there next year because Kyle Higashioka was pretty much the only serviceable catcher that should be starting on a playoff team on the market.
Yeah.
And now
You can get away
all
with that.
gone. I mean, unless Salas just flies through the ranks like Jackson Holliday did, but I don't see that coming.
But at the same time, you want a stopgap, like 1 year deal option or 2 year. Like, how about you give Kyle Higashioka a 2 year deal and you give him a player option for the second year, and it's like $8 million and $10 million.
Yeah,
Is that hard?
that's exactly what the Rangers did.
Maybe
except
they didn't value him as much.
Maybe not, but that's really silly, especially because of what he
silly.
did in the playoffs. But I don't know.
You say Kikuchi gets the pitch to Travis d'Arnaud, and they
Boring.
both could have signed to good teams, and they instead went to the Angels.
Super
What the hell?
boring. And now the Rangers have two catchers.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Jonah Heim is. I really, really value Jonah Heim.
He's theoretically supposed to play like a lot, hasn't he? Doesn't he play a lot of games?
Yeah.
127, 131, 131.
Yeah. I will say that's a lot of blue.
Yeah,
And
he's not the best
if
offensively.
our cameras are working, that's a lot of blue.
But he's a catcher, so it's not the end of the world. It's not exactly what you want, but it's not the end of the world.
And he's a good defensive catcher,
Yeah.
or at least he has been in the past. He wasn't exactly last year. He was about average from the expected
All the
stats.
numbers are so finicky anyway.
But I mean, yeah, last year was a down year for him defensively. His defensive run value in 2021 to 2023 were 6, 11, and 12, which is outstanding.
It's almost as good as it gets, really.
Yeah. So I don't really know what caused the drop off last year. I'm assuming it's some form of like lingering injury or something like that.
I do think he played hurt for a little bit last year. Also, sometimes those numbers kind of just shake out like that, where someone has an outlier year. Like Rafael Devers one year was like +9,
Really?
and the eye test didn't pass it. Like
I think Soto did the same thing.
exactly. Like sometimes those numbers and what you actually watch, if you watch a lot of games, don't exactly line up. But the school of thought is that Jonah Heim is a good defensive catcher. And also the school of thought with Kyle Higashioka is that he's trusted to throw to if you're a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
And it made a difference for the Padres last year.
Yeah.
And now the Padres don't have that difference maker.
No, they don't. But, I mean, the Padres will find something because they're the Padres and they can find something and make decent out of something.
They find their way to make decent.
But, I mean, I don't know if Elias Diaz is still in their control, but that was the backup catcher last year, and it looks like...
Luis Campusano.
Oh, yeah, I always forget about him.
Who's lined up as their starting catcher? Luis Campusano.
Yep, there it is.
And Brett Sullivan is currently on roster resources, their second catcher. 17 plate appearances in 2024.
And he hit 188.
That's not awesome.
And Campusano, who is, I believe, somewhat seen as like a contact hitter, hit 227. He's
That's
got like
not
that
awesome.
funky stance where he puts his hands
Oh,
right
yeah,
over
yeah,
here,
yeah.
like in front of his face, and then he
Maybe don't do that. Just maybe don't do that. Danny Jansen signed with the Rays.
the AL East journeyman,
I knew you'd get excited about that.
the Rays, and the Rays. So unfortunately, they had a hurricane, so they have a 1-year, $55 million contract with a roof.
With a fruit.
So that's not favorable for them, but they got a solid catcher, so good for them.
Yeah, he spent some time with the Red Sox last year.
Wasn't very good
He wasn't very good.
with
He-
them, at least.
He can hit better than most catchers, which is attractive because he could theoretically DH sometimes against lefties if the Rays want to do it that way. He's kind of just more of a body to throw out there. If Danny Jansen signed with the Rangers, I would be more excited about it because he would kind of play off Jonah Heim a little bit better.
Yeah.
But if like he's gonna run the show here with the Rays, and maybe it works out because they're playing at Steinbrenner Field and the fences are closer. Like
Yeah.
Danny Jansen could pop 25 over and WRC plus like 110, and it could work out.
It's really weird that we're living in a time where two major league teams are playing at minor league ballparks.
And they're the most predictable ones too.
Yeah,
Like of
which is
course the
really
Rays
upsetting.
and the Athletics are doing that.
Yeah. But who knows?
What else you got there? Do you got anything else good for me there?
I got Tommy Edman for you.
Yeah, deferred money for Tommy Edman.
Yeah.
Having a guy that can play, and I'm about to feel this with Cedon Rafaela, and it's going to be great. And you might feel this with Luis Angel Acuna, and it's going to be great. Having a guy that can play shortstop, second base, and center field
Yeah.
does incredible things for what you can do with your franchise.
Yeah.
And Tommy Edman has been that for years.
Mm-hmm. And the fun part is they have two of them with Mookie Betts.
Yeah, it's true. And the Dodgers are so smart for re-signing him.
Yeah.
Because especially he hit in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah. He is the ultimate lefty killer.
He hit fourth against lefties on the Dodgers.
It's insane how good he is against lefties. And I'm curious if the Dodgers are going to try and make him just a righty only,
Let me pull up
especially
his
since
splits,
he's
if I can.
he's not like he's not old, but he's getting up there to
He's
the point
veteran.
where he's a veteran and he's
29.
not getting any better against righties, especially statistically. But I'll pull up his splits real quick.
You might be able to do it faster than me.
Yeah. I will.
Splits.
In 2024, he hit he had 34 at bats
Oh my
against
goodness,
lefties.
this is ridiculous.
Yeah, I know. He had 34 at bats against lefties and 105 at bats against righties. Against righties, he hit 181 with a 523 OPS. Against lefties, he hit 412 with a 1299 OPS. That is ridiculous.
Is it WRC plus? That's WRC plus of 250.
Yeah. And I mean, these numbers haven't been the same in the past. That it's kind of an outlier year, but he's consistently better against lefties. And that's his power side as well. So he's hitting better for average and for power against lefties. And the question is it the approach against lefties? Is it a mental thing? Is it he needs to just stick to hitting righty? You know, I'm curious what the answer is going to be, and I think the Dodgers will have an answer because their development system is remarkable.
In 2013, Shane Victorino was on the Red Sox, and he was a switch hitter. And in the middle of the season, he just stopped hitting left-handed. He just switched. He hit righty against righties, and in the first game, he hit a right-on-right home run. Maybe they should try something like that with Tommy Edman.
Cedric Mullins was a switch hitter.
And he stopped.
And he was terrible. And then he stopped doing it, and he was an all-star. It's really funny because in MLB The Show 21, with the year he became a lefty, I remember his card art was him bunting as a righty. And it was really funny because he was a lefty hitter. I was like super confused because at the beginning of the year, I was like, who the heck is this guy? Like, he's just playing well for the Orioles right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then he became an all-star, and he became, he won some awards and stuff like that.
I really want to see them try it just because these numbers are so, ridiculous. I assume they're not going to try it because it's like a once-in-a-blue moon type thing.
Right, yeah.
But I want to see him hit righties as a righty. And, what if it works? And what if he's an above-average hitter against both sides of the plate with elite defense? You just paid not a lot of money for a 4-WAR player.
Yeah, and basically what you just created is Willy Adames in Tommy Edman's body with Tommy Edman's value.
Yeah, and then put Willy Adames in center field.
Yeah. Oh, man, the Dodgers. They are so overpowered.
They just know how to pick them.
They really do. They really do. That's about all the news, I think.
That's about all the news? Yeah, I think we're in on the news.
No, we have Brady Singer and Jonathan India trade.
Oh, yeah. We texted about it, but we never talked about it.
Yeah.
We'll hit that exciting Central Division trade and then head on home here.
And the White Sox got their top target in Austin Slater. That was really hilarious.
We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I just think it's really funny. I
think
want
it's
to touch on
funny too. I think it's funny how Austin Slater went to the media and was like, "Yeah, they said I'm their number one target."
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? All right, we talked about the India Singer trade, and we both liked it for different sides.
Yeah.
You thought it was better for India. I thought it was better for Singer. But I think it's good for both teams.
I think it's great for both teams because India is an undervalued hitter. And while he is not Juan Soto, and it's not like this guy's not going to blow you away, I mean, he's got a lot to look at. He's 87th percentile in xWOBA. He walks a lot. He's 97th percentile in walk rate and 98th in chase rate.
He's got consistently pretty good on-base percentages, which is super helpful if you're going to hit in front of Bobby Witt.
Mm-hmm. And he hits the ball all over the field. His spray chart is very spread out, which I kind of like looking at, honestly. He's not ever going to be a guy, I don't think, that hits 300 with an 870 OPS, but he'll be a guy who his ceiling is like a 270 season with an OPS over 800, and he's got positive outs above average. His arm is very weak, but who cares?
If it's second base.
You're putting him at second base. So there's a lot to be excited about here in this trade.
Yeah.
And of course you're giving up Singer, but you already re-signed Waka, and you're looking
You have
at re-signing
Lugo.
Lugo. Or do they still have him under control this year?
I think they signed him to a multi-year deal starting before last year.
Yeah. So you got Lugo, you got
Cole
Waka.
Reagans.
You got Cole Reagans, of course.
They kind of had they had a weakness that was hitting.
Yeah.
And you've got to trade something to fill your weaknesses. And Brady Singer happened to be the guy.
Yeah.
And the Reds had a weakness that was pitching.
Yeah.
And honestly, for them, India was kind of expendable.
Yeah.
If you have Ellie and you have Matt McClain coming up and you have Noel V. Marte.
Yeah.
So that's why I like it for the Reds, is I think because the Royals have the chance to miss Brady Singer a little more than the Reds have the chance to miss Jonathan India. But like if you're looking at it in terms of like wins above replacement, is it more likely that, also because he's a hitter, that India has more than Singer? Sure.
Yeah.
But you're getting a ground ball pitcher if you're the Reds in that tiny park where fly balls just zip out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was attractive. And Singer had a good year last year after a really not good year the year before. But he's working things out, and he's consistent. He's thrown 150 innings each of the last 3 seasons. And that's good for the Reds, who have a young rotation with guys that are very promising but also are still trying to figure it out. So I like it for the Reds because Singer's going to be a consistent force in the rotation, and it'll help them get some stability.
Yeah.
Not that this is a groundbreaking trade or anything.
No, not at all.
But it's also, the other thing about it is it's quality big leaguer for quality big leaguer.
Right.
Which you don't see a lot, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, totally agree. And they threw Joey Weimer in there. Sure.
Joey Weimer.
Why not? He'll
Run fast a little bit.
Yeah, go out there and run down some fly balls, Joey Weimer, and hit like very league average.
Like one, probably worse.
Yeah, probably well below league average. Oh yeah, well below. Look at this baseball savant page.
Oh dear.
He didn't qualify, but
what was his batting average? Because we care about
154.
154. All right, yeah.
368 OPS. My goodness. All right, well, there's Joey Weimer for you.
Time to close our computers, everyone.
Probably not gonna play.
Hopefully, before we head home, Juan
full
Soto
months.
signs, and we find a time this week to talk about it.
Yeah.
But until then, that's the big news, and then Juan Soto will be the big news, and we're going to have to get on here and talk about that. I'm hoping today or tomorrow.
When Juan Soto signs, we might have to designate an entire episode towards it.
Especially if he signs with the Mets or Red Sox. Well, actually, it's either going to be really happy for one of us or really sad for both of us.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for that. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Peace.
Adios.